Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Talking Locs with Locitude podcast. This is the final episode of the Everyday People with Locks series, and I am more than excited that we have now put out a dozen complete episodes in this season. I am your host, Ade Balogun, and this episode is produced by Savage Media. There's no better way to end this series than to travel cross-continent all the way to Jamaica. Yes, Jamaica. The one place that is synonymous with the words like Jah, Rastafari, Bob Marley, Ganja, and of course, locks. In today's episode, we are joined by Trudy Greenland, a natural hair and lock stylist based in Kingston and Portmore, Jamaica. She is the part owner of Jus Natural hair salon. She's an exercise enthusiast, mother of two, a lockhead for 20 years, and of course, a Jamaican. Without further ado, let's get right into this conversation.
Sure.
Hi Trudy, welcome to the Talking Locs with Locitude podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you on. I think
absolute pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure to be here.
Okay, the title of today's podcast is Locks and Jamaica, which is a very big topic. So I am excited to see how much ground we can cover and how much more enlightened I would actually be about locks in regards to Jamaica itself. But before we start, can you quickly tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so my name is Trudy. Greenland is my last name. I am a stylist and part owner of Jus Natural Hair Studios. We have two locations. We have a location in Kingston and one in Portmore, which is called St. Catherine. So that's two parishes. Mm-hmm. I have two children. I am pretty active in, my workout routines. I'm a workout junkie. And I love Jamaica.
Awesome. So another quick question. This I haven't actually been able to figure out. I know we've had some brief conversations before we got to this point, but it's been very difficult to find out whether or not you actually have locks.
Wow! That's a good question. Well, guess what? I had locks.
Okay.
Let's say I cut them off 10 years ago. Actually, May, to be exact, would make 10 years that I had to take them out after having my last child. When you have kids, different stuff goes on with your body. And so my hair started doing a little number. So I wore them for 20 years though.
Wow.
So when I started my lock journey, I actually started doing hair within that time. So it was just like a growing stage. So each thing start growing. The business and the hair start growing at the same time. So I wore locks for 20 years.
Oh, I completely relate with that. But I'm not at 20 years yet. I'm 12 years old. And I feel like a small mommy with my locks. But I don't know if I'm going to last another 8 years before I decide whether or not I want to chop them off and start again or do something else. But we'll see.
But you know what? I must say that I never knew, or anyone could ever say to me that, you know what, you wouldn't have your locks today. I thought that they were my go-to. But, I experienced different things with my hair after taking them out. But I don't think that I would ever say I would go back. Because now I'm wearing something that looks somewhat like locks, but it's just temporary. It's not permanent.
Okay. I think before we go into the juice of the conversation, I really like that you said that, when you started your locks the first time, you had just started your business and you were growing with your locks. I was fortunate to be on some program called Africaniwa last week, and that was exactly my experience. I was like, my hair, when I started to do my hair, things happen in your life and you can see your hair grow and you can also see yourself growing as a person. So I'm glad that no matter what part of the world or continents we are, we kind of feel the same things through one thing that we have in common, which is our hair. So,
Yes, it does.
Jamaica. I'm really
Nice
excited.
Jamaica.
Yes. So when we think about Jamaica, a few things come to mind. You know, the words Bob Marley, obviously, Rastafarian, cannabis. So I'm hoping that we will touch a little bit on these things. But the first
Mm-hmm.
question I have is what okay, let me phrase it this way. Being on the African continent and having locks, a lot of people, especially in the early days when they were short and spiky, would see me and call me Rasta sister. Hey, Rasta, you know. And it's kind of funny because I don't know anything about the Rastafarian culture, but because I have I have this hair, it's just assumed that you are Rasta. And growing up really in Lagos, a few people who used to have locks at that time were if you were like mentally ill on the side of the road, or you were
Oh
into
wow.
like reggae music, which is kind of linked back to like Jamaica and the
Jamaica.
Rastafarian culture. And or maybe if you were into entertainment, those were the only three reasons you couldn't be anything else and have locks. So it's changed now. But can you tell us a little bit about what it really means to be Rastafarian? And is everybody in Jamaica Rastafarian?
That's very that's a very interesting question. Um, and like you said before, when if you travel the world, anywhere you go in the world, and they hear your accent first, then if they don't even speak English, the first thing they would say is Bob Marley. And so as a Jamaican, we associate that to, Jamaica, Bob Marley, locks, reggae music. As you said, cannabis, we would call it ganja or marijuana. And so, no, not every Jamaican is Rasta, and not every person that wears locks is Rasta. Let's just say, back in the time when Bob Marley was the person that carried the baton for Rastafarianism, it was very, it was high. I probably was about a baby back then.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up, and I think I had said this to you earlier on in our conversation before. I grew up in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And so I had a little bit of knowledge about what the Rastafarian community is, and just the diaspora of Jamaica, what we think of locks. Now, in the 20th century, locks is just a hairstyle. It's just fashion. It's just hair that we wear now to signify us being black.
Mm.
And I want to say that for me, and that would be my opinion, and that would be even some of the opinions of my clients. Most persons are finding out that wearing their hair natural, and as they start finding their natural hair, then they transition into wearing locks because it becomes an easier lifestyle. People in corporate, they want to get up and just go quickly. A mother with how many children and she has her job, that is just a quick go-to hairstyle for her. When she comes to get it done, she gets her hair groomed, and she can keep that for, let's say, 4 weeks. So that within itself becomes a hairstyle. So most Jamaicans, if I should say that for myself, we are not Rastafarians. I am not Rastafarian, but I wear my locks, or used to wear my locks, to signify just us as black people, and to wear our hair natural. It's a privilege.
That's very, very interesting. Okay, I'm glad you say this because it almost feels like we're in the same bucket. So if you went out and someone called you Rasta, you're gonna be like, no, that's actually not accurate.
Actually, when they see you and they don't, well, in Jamaica, if you're walking on the street and they see you wearing locks, yes, they will say, yes, Rasta, Wagwan, Empress, that's the word they use. Empress, what's going on? Or Queen. So you, as a female, there is a certain amount of respect when you wear locks.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up the way you did, because the first time I felt it was, I think that was in 2012. I went on a holiday to the Gambia, which is one of the countries on the on the coastal line of West Africa. And my locks were pretty short back then. I think I'd had them for about 3 years. And I
Mm.
had no idea that I was a soul princess, Nubian queen. I was just
Yes,
walking down the
yes,
street and they're like,
yes,
Nubian queen, soul sister. And
yes.
I felt I could actually feel very happy and I felt different, especially because a lot of women in Gambia at the time didn't wear their hair natural. Okay, so this conversation is going somewhere. So I kind of want to understand a little bit about, the roots of locks in regards to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church itself and how that differs from Rastafarism.
All right. So I want to speak in just a little bit I know. Growing up in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, I think a lot of persons would want to associate the Orthodox Church to it being of Rastafarian origin. Yes, the church was brought to Jamaica under the umbrella of Haile Selassie, and of course we all know who Haile Selassie is. However, the doctrine and the teachings of the church does not it's not saying Rastafarian or Rastafari, so to say. So in Jamaica they have like different, what we would call them, denominations. Let's use that. So you have the Bobo Shanti, you have the 12 tribe, you have, of course, you have the Orthodox, and there should be another one. But there are different denominations of what Rasta or Rastafarians would want to put themselves in their little, there is the area. And so for the Bobos and the other persons, the Bobo Shantis, the 12 tribes of Israel, they would consider themselves Rasta. And for Rastafarians, they don't groom, they don't consider the maintenance of locks to be a thing. Which is why initially I said to you that not all Jamaicans are Rastafarians, because the concept of Rasta is natural. They eat from the earth. They don't use, in the salons you have products that you might use that may not be all natural, and so Rasta within themselves, they don't groom locks. They don't come out as in looking neat.
Right.
Then, now, in this century, we do still have the elders that hold on to certain doctrines and certain way of life for them that they hold dear to themselves. However, as time goes by, and you and I know this, as days go by, time go by, years go by, people start to acknowledge that. And for me, if we're representing, if Rasta represents Haile Selassie, my opinion is Haile Selassie was a very, very neat man. And so for nowadays, Rastafarians or persons who wear locks, they tend to want to lead to that direction. So they want to come into the grooming. Because in Jamaica, we have the lawyers, we have the doctors, we have people in high corporate jobs that represent a sector of the society. And they wear locks, and for them, in order for the locks to become something of a thing or something that is acceptable, it has to be groomed. We still do have our radical ones that will set their trend, and even though they're not as very neat or groomed with the hair, it still represents something, and it still looks good, and it still keeps it's healthy. But for the elders that hold their traditions and their teachings steadfast, Rastafarian or Rastafarians, I would say, they wouldn't come to the modern day world to say, okay, let me do this or let me do that. They still hold their rods. I know you don't probably know much about that. They still hold their rods. They still wear their turbans, because that's a sector of the denomination of Rastafarians. The 12 tribe of Israel, they wear turbans around their heads to cover their locks. So that's for them. It's sacred. You understand?
Yes.
Even now, in some area of persons who are not saying that they are Rastafarians, but they hold a certain amount of just a certain amount of thing with their hair. They're not going to allow anyone to go into their hair. So they, people would come to you and they say, oh, I think I have you give me a different kind of vibe. So they will allow you to put their hands in their hair. So things have changed as we go along.
Right. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. I love the connection that we all have to our hair, even though we found ourselves in different parts of the world. Now, the question I have next is that I always try to put myself in the stories because it's the best way I can relate to, what you are going to tell us or explain where I'm coming from. When I decided to lock my hair like 12 years ago, or no, before that, I think some 14, 15 years before, the first time I told my mom that I wanted to lock my hair, she was, I wouldn't say disgusted. She's usually very supportive, so she did not discourage me, but she did not encourage me either.
Right.
She was like, why do you want to do something that a mad person does to their hair? It was a big deal. So that deterred me for a few years, and then I eventually, got my hair locked. And about some 4 years after I locked my hair, or is it 6 years now after I locked my hair, she locked her hair as well. So, like you said, as the days go by, things change. But in Jamaica, would you say, for someone who's also a hairstylist, is it a big decision for the average person to decide to lock their hair? Or is it as easy as deciding to wear a weave or a wig or wear your hair in its loose, natural form?
All right. So you mentioned that when you decided on locking your hair, that your mother she wasn't encouraging, but she didn't discourage you.
Mm-hmm.
So before I answer the question, I want to just kind of give you a little snapback because, like I said, I grew up in Orthodox. My dad had locks, so my dad wore locks for many, many years until he decided on becoming a part of the clergy at the church. And with becoming a part of the clergy, he had to cut his hair. But initially, I wanted to lock my hair, before I left high school. And I remember telling my dad that I wanted to lock my hair. And he said to me, and I'm going to speak in Jamaican terms so that you can understand. So he said to me, well, I'm not going to stop you from locking your hair. But just understand that in the time that we're living in, and that would have been back in back in the 70s, locks wasn't an acceptable thing, so to say, when it come on to corporate,
Mm-hmm.
And like I said initially, time went on. It wasn't everybody wasn't into it at the time. But as time goes by and I decided on doing it, to tell you the truth, I actually locked my hair when I was in high school and just never pulled it out. And I continued grooming my hair. And for me, I had never experienced anything of a negative. If I had to go and look a job, I never had to look a job, but I'm just saying, if I had to,
it wouldn't have been a problem.
I don't think it would have been a problem, because I think within the time when I started to get into corporate era, or just going out into the world as a young person, it started to become so much more a thing. Like, everybody wanted to have locks. So now, fast forward into now, let me tell you something, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to have locks. Since the lockdown, since we had the pandemic in 2020, and everybody had to stay home. So people who used to go to the salon to get their hair processed every 6 weeks and stuff, and everybody got the scare and they had to stay home, their natural hair started to come up through that process here, and they started to like it. But when they started liking it, it becomes, because having your natural hair, it's lovely, but it takes a lot of work. You and I know this, that
Mm-hmm.
in order to look nice and chic tomorrow morning, we have to get the twist up or get the bantu knots and get the curls up and everything. And so we've had tremendous outpour of persons messaging, calling. Oh, they think they have finally decided that they're thinking about this for so long, and now since they have their natural hair, they are finally deciding on locking. Jamaica is revolutionized when it comes on to people with locks.
That's awesome.
Revolutionized.
Okay, that's great.
My clientele, we had 3 salons, and we had to close one of our salons in the parish of Montego Bay because of the whole pandemic, and not everything was able to stay afloat. But we had, or we still have, a massive clientele of persons, male and female, that wear locks.
Awesome. Okay, this conversation kind of leads me to my next question. I gave a TED talk in 2017, and while I was researching for the talk, of course, I was going to talk about hair, and dreadlocks is what I do. So that's what my TED talk was centered around, and the emphasis on African hair and its beauty. In doing my research on the word dreadlocks, most of it went back to Jamaica. And now in the 21st century, and with the internet, which is a beautiful place, but it has so much information that you could get lost in it. So, but a lot of the research I did kind of pointed back to the origin of the word dreadlocks. And in America now, a lot of people would tell you that you shouldn't call their hair dreadlocks because their hair is not dreadful, and that the origin of the word isn't pleasant. And in my research, what I was trying to say was that in my research, it did point back to Jamaica, and I think around the 1960s, when there was the opposition to colonial rule, and people with locks or matted hair were seen as dreadful. And that's where the word dreadlocks, or one of the origins of the word dreadlocks, is from. Do you have an opinion on that?
That I have not done a extensive research on the word dreadful, but you are correct. If my memory serves me clear or right, my dad would have told me that back then in the 70s, when they were having a lot of ups and downs, they did have that point where persons that wore dreadlocks would have looked down at, or look at, as outcasts, or they were the ones who started the rebellion, or they started a protest, because they were always pushed aside. So yes, the little I know of that, no, the word dreadlocks, no, for me, I may not use it as much, but it doesn't mean anything dreadful, because I understand. I don't take it so deep as the word dreadful. But you do have persons who will speak of it and say they don't have dreadlocks, they have locks, or they're wearing locks, or of course if they're Rastafarians, they say that they're Rastafarians.
Okay.
But for me personally, I don't dwell on negative connotations. Like, I don't dwell on if the word means dread, if it is something dreadful. But I do hear of it. I do hear one and two persons, and those persons, in my opinion, would be the ones that they're of the earth. They don't want to be considered anything dreadful.
Right. This is interesting, and I'm happy that at least my TED talk wasn't a lie, because my sources were the internet. So I'm glad that we agree.
Yeah, and we all know that the internet also gather information from, just persons who different persons. So it's everyone's opinion, and everybody has an opinion of what a word or a phrase may mean to them. Okay. But the word dreadlocks now is, in my opinion, is a very used word. If you go on the internet, if persons are making the formation of locks, they sell it as and they have the heading on the top. It's dreadlocks. Yeah. Dreadlocks stocking caps that you wear. Whatever it is that is associated with the formation of locks.
It's a key word.
I think it's a very popular used word.
Yeah. I think on my own side of it, just understanding history, or let me put it this way. So where I'm from in Africa or Nigeria, I'm from the Yoruba speaking part of Nigeria, and when we are giving names, our names have meanings. So your given name is usually a circumstance of your birth or something that was going on in your parents' lives or something like that. So I do personally believe that names are very powerful. So when I did,
Yes, I personally believe that. Yeah, because in Orthodox, when you are, um, well, they would call it baptized, where the modern world would call it christened. But when you're baptized in the Orthodox faith, you are given a name, and that name has a meaning, and of course the meaning would would manifest in your life somehow. So for me, when I was a child and I was baptized in the Orthodox, my given name was Sebla Wangel, which would mean daughter of the harvest. And I think I'm actually living my manifestation now, because I create so much work and I am harvesting from what I do. So I do believe that names has
have
power and it has meaning
yeah.
towards it, and it actually propels you for your life stance.
Yeah. So for me, when I learned the origin or the likely origin of the word dreadlocks and how it might
Right.
mean something negative, I was like, you know what? I do get it that when people say your hair is dreadlocks, they do not see a dreadful person. You know, for the longest time, I called my hair dreadlocks before I got to know about the history. But in coming to that knowledge, it's just like a choice to say, you know what? Locks is kind of fancy as well. We can do without the first part of it. So I personally,
Yeah.
almost 100% of the time, refer to my hair as
Try
locks.
not to. Right.
Yeah. Um.
Very rare I use the word dread too. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying, so very rare I would say dreadlocks. If I'm talking to someone who is, maybe wanting to understand the whole culture and the whole thing of it, then maybe you could use that word so that it breaks it down easier for them, because sometimes it's really what it is when persons are not understanding. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm absolutely agreeing with what you're saying in terms of using the word.
Yeah. So that's great. Okay, I would really like to take this conversation to the ganja part of it. Well, when my locks were short and spiky and more obvious, because right now they are long and most people think they are braids anyway or false hair, but at the stage where they were short and spiky, that girl you would see at a party and somebody would tap you and go like, yeah, do you know, do you have ganja? Do you know where to get it? And I'm just like, but I don't smoke this thing. Why is everybody assuming I do just because I have this hair? So I'm
Because
going
it's
to
associated.
yes, it is associated, we know. But I did read somewhere randomly on the internet when I was preparing for this podcast about parts of Rastafarism believing that ganja and marijuana is one of the is a tree of life, and it helps to connect to your higher self in terms of connecting to God. Do you know anything about that? And I don't want to ask a naive question and say, does every Jamaican
Yeah.
smoke cannabis or ganja?
No.
But I know that would just be belittling the conversation.
No,
But
no,
do you
no.
have an opinion of
I
connecting to the higher self through the tree of life?
I don't personally have. I don't smoke. Maybe I did when I was much younger. As teenagers, you want to try, and then early on, I recognize that my head doesn't. It's too light, so I don't mess around those stuff. But from my knowledge of hanging around or hearing of, and even doing research, that is a part of their sacrifice. That's their way of connecting to the higher person for them. So the little I know, I can only speak of what I know. That is a big thing for the Rastafarian community. for persons who smoke, because you do have Rastafarians or persons that wear locks that doesn't smoke, and you do also have persons that don't even wear locks and they will smoke. They will use the marijuana, they will use it for their personal recreational thing. Maybe they want to just have a nice evening, and that's again for persons who are not using it for the Rastafarian, what you would call it now,
religious practices. Yeah,
their practices. That's the word. Their practices. But I am not big on that. I know little about the whole smoking and their thing, but it's a thing for them. Let me just say that it's a thing for Rastafarians. It's a part of their culture, and marijuana in Jamaica is. I'm trying to remember if it is legal now.
That was going to be my next question.
I'm trying to remember. I don't want to make a mistake, but I don't think it is fully legal. I think they will say you can have like a certain amount in your possession, but you can't send any, it can't be, like you can't package it to send it to any other country. So you have to only use it in your own space. So they have like rights. So they do have places in Jamaica that is registered to sell the oil or sell ones that is, they do it in the greenhouses and stuff like that. But you still have to buy it in small portion and use it in your own space. So I'm not sure if it's fully legal, but I know that they have parts in Jamaica where you can go and get it done right there.
Right. I think it's highly regulated, and I was just trying to search the internet very quickly, but I think possession can be criminalized. So it seems like it is legal to a certain degree, but like highly regulated.
Right.
Okay, so that's interesting to know. If anyone out there is interested in visiting Jamaica, you should probably find out what's legal and what's not, so you don't get so excited.
Yeah, but let me just say this: you do have your one and two guys in the corner. So like if you come in, you can always ask a person to say, where I can get some of that stuff, and they know exactly where to go. So like you said, it's regulated, but people can use it in their own space.
Okay, great. An interesting part of this conversation is, you did say that right now a lot of locks in Jamaica is not something that people look down on. Like, you're not going to enter your doctor's office and see a man with locks and go like, who is this unserious person?
It's the opposite now. When you walk into a doctor's office and see someone with locks, if they are the doctor, you say, wow, that looks good. You walk into, right now, locks is dominated in the law firms. Lawyers, it's a big thing for the lawyers in Jamaica. That's the go-to hairstyle in Jamaica. For the lawyers, for bankers, for I'm not trying to.
Is it popular in government as well?
To put down or local or regular people, but I'm just saying to you, the highest of the highest. Even in Parliament, we have people in Parliament that wears locks.
Both male and female.
Both male and female.
Wow, that's awesome.
As I speak, the Jamaica Labour Party that is in power as I speak, they have people in Parliament, both male and female, that wears locks.
This is the world where we're looking to get to.
Just for a big plug that actually comes to Jus Natural to get their hair done.
That is great. I think yes. I think that's the model world. That's the utopia the rest of us are looking for. So this is a flip side to the question. When I started Locitude in Nigeria, I think actually was the first salon to identify as a lock only salon. So other people did locks before me, of course, but they did other things as well. So they would do the relaxers, they would do your braids and
Right.
everything. And when I started, I actually started because of my own hair. I started looking after my hair myself. I started writing a blog about it. Then I left
Wow,
corporate
this is
without a job.
awesome.
And then people started asking me, "Oh, can you make my hair look like yours?" And I was
Oh
like,
my
"Okay."
God.
So
This sounds like you're my sister from another mother. Like, like you're speaking, and that literally is the same thing that happened to me.
wow. Okay, so you do understand this story. And in so this was 2015 when I formally opened. My background is in architecture, but nobody was calling me to design houses. People were calling me to help out with their hair. And because
Hmm.
I was doing my own hair, I wasn't doing the perm or the weaves. I couldn't offer that as a service to people. So I decided to stick to locks
What you know?
100%. Yes. So the interesting thing that used to happen back in the day was, and probably still happens now, is that you enter almost any salon in Lagos with locks, and they tell you, "Sorry, we can't do your hair." Because not because they discriminate you, but the truth is that they don't know what to do
They
to
don't
your
know.
hair. So they're just completely confused. Do you wash it? Do you not wash it? Like, what am I going to do with you? They have no idea. So you get turned back. So when I
That's crazy.
started, it was really a safe space for people who were choosing to wear their hair locked, because you could come and we knew what to do. So the tables
Right.
kind of turned, because what would happen is when other people walked into the salon and said, "I want to get a weave," or like, "Oh, we're sorry, you could go to somewhere else, but we can't do your hair." So the question is there any form of discrimination for people who are choosing to wear their hair in other ways in Jamaica, or is it just a level
No,
playing ground?
no. Let me say that this. You're giving me some stories, girl. When I st- when I listen, I think we're related. When I started locking my hair, I I used to I used to work on the North Coast. The North Coast in Jamaica is where tourists come in. We go to the hotel and we will do like cabaret. So we perform. So I used to sing before, and then
Mm.
I had my locks. I start grooming my own locks. So to fast forward, I used to do the band members. So when I go down to do my rehearsals and stuff, and the band members would see me and they say, "Oh, where did you get your hair done?" And I would say, "Oh, I do my own hair." So they say, "Oh, can you come earlier before rehearsal and hook me up?" And that's where I started to doing my friends here, doing other persons here. In Jamaica now, salon, well, Just Natural, like you said with your salon, Just Natural Hair Studio was the first salon to only cater for persons with locks and natural hair.
Oh.
When we had what they used to have was persons who had salons, and they would rent booth spaces to persons, and they would do the permings and the wigs, and but we only cater for natural hair and locks only. We don't do processing, we don't do flat irons, nothing that is outside of natural hair and locks. We don't do them. And it's funny when you say that, because now, because locks and growing hair natural is a big thing, most persons that even rent booth spaces to other stylists, the stylists themselves want to learn or want to know how to do lock,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a big thing. It's a revolution. People are, if you're not wearing the faux locks, you're wearing your natural locks that is coming out of your scalp, or you're wearing something that mimics what locks look like. And so therefore you have to step up the game. So each time new ideally want to do process hair, so they do natural hair, or they do locks or style locks. Even in the industry, that because natural hair and lock formation is a big thing now. Most persons like everybody has a product line that is geared for natural hair care,
Mm-hmm.
or most of the prominent product lines, they do have a section for natural hair care. So when you go to the beauty supply stores, there is a vast, like a great line of different products that you can pick, choose, and refuse from when it comes on to natural hair. So no, in the salons you walk in, even if they don't know what to do, they'll tell you to sit down because everybody wants to know. I've been approached so many times to start doing courses for persons who want to specialize in grooming and taking care of locks and starting them for so long, and I've been procrastinating, but it is something that it's in my to-do list, and that's something that I'm going to do because we have been in existence since 2000. Maybe what am I saying? 2000. I have been doing hair from home. So if I should say personally for myself, I've been doing this for about maybe 25 years.
Wow.
And and Jus Natural has been in existence for about maybe, let's say, 18 years. My son is 18 years, so maybe 20, because I'd started about 2 years before. When I say started professionally, like got myself, because originally my salon was inside the Bob Marley Museum, which
Yes,
is
you did
also
mention that.
a big thing for us because we actually had it was like a stepping stone for us. Jus Natural Hair Studio inside the Bob Marley Museum. Most persons or most locals that never been inside the museum came into the museum when we were there, and it was an aha moment for them. It was an experience because it was 2 in 1. If they are waiting to get their hair done, they could go and do a tour, learn something about Bob Marley, and so it kind of tied in with us.
That's
And we
awesome.
were there for many years. Yeah, we were there for many years. We had a lot of our locals that came to Jus Natural and learned, just like how you have, you went and you do your research. They came in and it was like a surprise for them. They didn't even know that this place was here, and they were experiencing the best of both worlds. They are inside the Bob Marley Museum, and then they are getting their hair done at Jus Natural. So I thought it was an awesome experience for me when we started.
That's great. That's great. I'm really enjoying our conversation so far. I think we've already gone over like the 45-minute mark. So it's interesting how the time flies when you are having fun. But it's been a very interesting conversation. I think I have learned a lot about Jamaica. At least the stereotypes I do know that are not across board for everybody, but it's been awesome. I'm really happy I found you to do this podcast with us. And I was saying that everybody else who had come on the podcast was somebody I had met in person. So you are the first person that I have just asked out of nowhere and agreed to come on. So I really, really do thank you for doing that.
I am so honored. I'm so honored. I'm honored that you found me. I'm curious to know how you found me.
Instagram.
And, you found me on Instagram.
I have been following you for a few years, actually.
Social media is the bomb.
Yeah, I have been following you for a few years. And because, of course, when you see people who are doing good work from anywhere in the world,
I thank you.
You kind of follow. So I have been following Jus Natural. And Jus Natural, for those who might be listening, is at JUS Natural on Instagram.
Yes.
So I have a couple more questions before we kind of wrap it up. You do have 2 sons, I believe?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
My first is 18 and my second is 10.
Wow. So if your 18-year-old wanted to have locks, I do know that this is something that is not frowned at anymore in Jamaica. But is it something that you would have any problem with by any chance? Would there even be a conversation?
No, could never be a conversation. If he wanted today, I will start it for him.
Awesome.
Because I know that it doesn't hinder him from doing whatever he wants to get done. I've experienced that. I've never had a problem getting through any doors, speaking to anyone in any high places. I've never had an issue with or without my locks. So if he wants it today, then he can. But my son is a hot boy.
We'll see.
He's Mr. Glamour.
I can imagine that. Well, the revolution is here. I think we are living the revolution. I think Jamaica is definitely where we all want to be in other parts of the world,
Yeah.
where nobody discriminates you for how you choose to wear your hair as an African, where the kinks on your hair, whether you're a man or a woman, are respected by everyone. Thank you so much. I know I've just been saying thank you and thank you and thank you. You've also shared
thank
some religious lights into what it is to be Jamaican, and all the buzzwords that we have, and how they don't. I always say that there's one race, which is the human race, and in that race we are all different. Each individual is a different person, so you can't just slap a label on everybody and say every Jamaican is Rastafarian, does ganja, and
Bob Marley did say every man have a right to decide his own destiny. In this judgment there is no equal. You understand? So we choose our destiny, and that's something that we take pride in. We as Jamaicans, we take pride in just everything, as simple as it may be, or hair, or nails, or dressing. I've always said, sometimes when we're as friends and we're talking and we say, if you get lost in the airport, just look, you'll see a Jamaican. They're always nicely dressed.
Oh,
just follow them and you'll never get lost.
Cool. Now I know how to find my way home, because I almost feel like Jamaica is my home. So do you have any last words for anybody out there who is in my own world trying to make that decision on what their hair is going to make them look like, if it is the right decision to make, and how they should go about it?
What I would say, for me personally, I'm like you. I always put myself in the position of the story, so it makes sense. And so if I'm scrolling through a magazine and I see a dress, I know when to stop the page, because that is what pops out for me. Mm-hmm. And so it comes to your hair. It has to be something inward. It has to be, and that's for me. I knew I could not have or process here. I wasn't brought up in that culture, so I knew what I liked. Mm-hmm. And so for you for persons out there who are seeking to want to make that decision, for me it's inward. Know how it's going to make you feel. It's going to empower you. It is just so much of a crown. You said it when you walked in the streets. They were calling you Empress and Queen. It gives you a crown on your head. It puts you out. You stand above everything, and of course you're natural. What else could be better?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Trudy. The last thing I'm going to say is that I absolutely love your accent. So I'm really glad and proud of myself. I'm like, this is definitely authentic. So we have authentically.
You know what? We don't try to put it on, we just talk properly. Yeah. But we do have time when we get down in the patois. That's our second language. They say patois is Jamaican second language, and I think a lot of people try to speak patois, but it's something that people like to hear.
Yes.
I don't mind talk patois sometimes.
Now you're going to lose me in this conversation. You're probably going to sell me and get some change. So Trudy, go on.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying I'm so honored and grateful for this interview. It's an honor.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let you have a good evening now with the boys. And do
Yes.
take care. It's really been also an honor having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I
Yeah.
wish you all the best in this podcast. I wish you many, many more interviews. And if you need me, you know where to find me.
Oh, yes, sure. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. I am so proud that we've come to the end of this season, and I believe this episode on Jamaica with Trudy Greenland was indeed worthy to wrap things up. As Trudy said, and in Bob Marley's words, every man got a right to decide his own destiny. That quote right there says it all. Our new season will be launched in the next quarter of the year, and it will be themed Meet the Experts. We will be interviewing nutritionists, trichologists, locticians, dermatologists, psychologists, all in relation to locks, and I'm sure you get the picture. But in the meantime, you need to watch out for 2 bonus episodes. The first will be a review of the Everyday People with Locks series, and I'll be doing that with our producer, Savage Media. And the second will be the Meet the Team Locitude episode. I'm very much looking forward to that one. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Talking Locs with Locitude podcast. It has been such a pleasure being your host, and my name again is Ade Balogun. And many thanks to our producer, Savage Media. Please don't forget to follow us on social media. We are at Locitude, LOCITUDE. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We have aired 19 episodes so far, which you can catch up on, and we have more interesting seasons coming soon. So don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We are currently on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, and Deezer podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube or on our RSS feed. We are the Talking Locs podcast. So there we have it. Stay well, and don't forget to keep it locked with an attitude.